Like Greta Thunberg, our next two guests, are among the young environmentalists who are making a difference, a big difference. Julianna Bradley and Georgia Wright created the Inherited podcast to share stories from the youth climate movement. Here's a clip.
Some people brush climate off as a future problem, and I don't blame folks who do this. Sometimes I even do this. This crisis is a painful thing to contemplate. My chest tightens just talking about it. But for people in my generation, being able to talk about climate change isn't really negotiable anymore. We are running out of time. We're feeling the urgency, and we can't shut up about it.
And we don't really want you to shut up. Julianna Bradley and Georgia Wright join us now. Good morning to you both, guys. Really good to see you. I love the podcast. It's so well done. It's so well done. You guys are such badasses what you're doing out there. But one of you, I think it was you, Georgia, Julianna, your dad said, look, you need to stop talking about this, or else you're not going to be invited to parties. Whose dad said that?
It was actually the father of Jenna DiPaldo, one of our interviewees. So one of the activists that we featured, it was her father. And then,
but I love that.
But to be fair, we've both been told that.
Many times.
That's what I'd heard. And your response is what? Because you said, listen, we want to leave this world a better place than what we inherited, because what we inherited is a flawed place. So what is your response to people who just don't get it? Julianna, you go first, please.
Sure. Well, I think something that drew us, one, to the name Inherited, but also to the youth movement, is that this is nothing new. Every single generation of young people is born into a world that they didn't create, that was handed to them, and often is asked, okay, do something with it or deal with the consequences. And more often than not, generations say, well, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to leave it behind better. We're also going to live in a world currently while we're living that's better. So I think when people say, why would you stand up to something that is, and that is, you're not going to do anything to actually solve? They've done it before, too. They were born into a world that had things that were solved, and they now get to live with the world that has progressed beyond that. So our generation, climate, is one of our biggest burdens that we've inherited.
But then, Georgia, there's the thinking that you guys are overreacting.
I mean, I simply think that that's just not the case. This is the future that we have in our hands right now, and quite frankly, we're extremely pressed for time. So, you know, every moment that we have makes a huge difference, and so it's the actions that young people are taking right now that are making the difference and making a future. And I think as far as the pessimism goes, it's really a misconception that young people are pessimistic and that we're party poopers if we are being told not to bring up climate change at parties, because actually, you know, we are having a lot of hope for the future, that we want a good future, that we're willing to fight for it. I think it shows a lot of really a will to live and an excitement for surviving and enjoying the life that we do have. So I actually think it's really a positive thing. It's a total misconception that youth climate activists are all doom and gloom, because actually I think we have a lot of hope. Otherwise, we wouldn't be fighting.
Georgia, you discussed climate anxiety in the podcast, and we heard Julianna mention her feeling her chest tighten when she talks about this. What do you mean exactly, climate anxiety?
I am one of many, many, many young people who all experience climate anxiety, which is the feeling of uncertainty over a livable future. It's the uncertainty I feel when I think about starting a family, when I think about what the world's going to look like. You know, when people tell me to put money in a retirement fund, I'm like, I guess, but you know, what if what's the world going to look like at that point? You know, it's hard to understand our future in the same way that previous generations have understood their future, because our future does not feel nearly as secure. And so climate anxiety is that physical reaction we get, and I've experienced that quite a lot. The tightness in the chest, the feeling in the stomach, the feeling of doom and dread and panic that I think a lot of young people feel when they contemplate a world that might be shifting beyond our control.
Yeah, but it's balanced by hope, I think we need to point out. And part of the anxiety is that it's not in your control from a leadership point of view. The perspective of people under the age of 40 is not the perspective of people, let's say, over the age of 50. And that creates a certain impasse.
Yeah, you said you're sick of being called young and naive. That is not the case here. Thank you both, Georgia Wright and Julianna Bradley. We're really glad you joined us this morning.